Welcome to the Spirit of a Badass, where we celebrate stories of courage, hope, and resiliency. I'm your host, Alecia Jacobson. Hello, badasses. With me today, I have just an exceptional badass as a woman and as a mom, and I'm really excited for you to hear her story and hopefully take some of the message with you out into the world so that you can do goodness. I get notes all the time about people listening to the podcast and then sharing with me how it changed them or something they're going to do different or something they had never thought of. And this is definitely one of those episodes. So I'm really excited to get into it with my guest today. And I would love to hear from you. If you listen to an episode and you are moved by it, I would love to just connect with you. You can connect with me on any of the socials, Facebook and Instagram. And I would love to hear from you and then share it with your friends or anybody that you think would enjoy the story. So today I have Kaiti with me. Kaiti has lived in the Madison area since she went to college at UW-Madison. She graduated in 2005 and never left the area. Kaiti is a mom of 2 kids. Harper is 12 and Brooks is 10. When she was pregnant with Harper, they found out that she would have Down syndrome and a heart defect. Since then, she has tried to use her experience in an early childhood education and her voice to advocate for the importance and acceptance and inclusion of people who are not typically developing. She learned so much in the last 12 years, yes, about Harper and Down syndrome, but mostly about herself. Kaiti currently works for a local nonprofit as a family resource center coordinator and childcare referral specialist. Welcome, Kaiti.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited to talk to you. We are already laughing here. I have 2 openings for her, and I left one up on the printer, so I had to run up and get it while we're recording. So now I am sweating and winded. I used to train Kaiti way back when, so she's probably enjoying
You need more burpees
right now. Exactly right. As I'm trying to talk and very, very winded. No. So we are here. Welcome, Kaiti. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yes. You've shared a little bit of your story with me many years ago. Tell us, because there's an overarching, you have the initial kind of finding out and having those moments. And then there, I imagine, is a whole process and all the emotions and things that happen afterwards, inward with yourself, worrying about your child, and then the outside world. Can you take us back there 12, 13 years ago and how that experience was for you?
Yeah. And ironically, it's been 13 years this week that we found out at Harper's 20-week ultrasound. When we set this up, it didn't even cross my mind. And then I looked at the calendar earlier this week and I was like, oh my gosh, that was 13 years ago. We were at Meritor, my husband and I. We were pregnant, right? So excited. I'm a planner. We wanted to know if we were having a girl or a boy. Went to that 20-week appointment. Everything seemed fine, right? Like we were joking with the tech. Tech told us it was a girl. Congratulations. So excited. And then it got a little weird, right? But it was our first pregnancy. So we didn't know, the protocol, how it went. The tech left and all of a sudden there's a bunch of doctors in the room with us. And that's when, right, they told us everything. Hey, it's a girl. Congratulations. We think she might have Down syndrome. And they gave us some of the markers, some of the clues for Down syndrome. And that was a lot to take in. But then they really focused on the fact that she had a heart defect. And that was going to be an urgent-ish fix. Like that's what's going to hold her back in life. That is problem number 1. Problem number 2 would have been Down syndrome. And then we were immediately swept into a side room in the hospital that probably very few people have been in. And a genetic counselor comes in and talks to you about what Down syndrome is, what your options are. They only gave us our options once. We said, no, thank you. And then they moved on, right? And we were very fortunate that all the medical professionals that we dealt with that day were very positive and understanding of feelings, confusions, all of that. But then we got bombarded with doctors, bombarded. So, right, do you want to know for sure if she has Down syndrome? Then we can do an amnio today. If you don't need to know right now and you're okay waiting, then we'll wait until she's born. But then you've got to go to fetal echocardiograms twice a week. You got to do stress tests twice a week. It went from 0 to 60 in minutes, right? Which is really overwhelming. And going back to, your question, yeah, it immediately changed me. It immediately changed my husband. It immediately changed how I did have to take time to grieve, like the what would have been, the what we thought having a daughter was going to be like. Certainly a lot of those things have still happened now that I'm, Harper's 12, but you don't know that at 20 weeks pregnant that life is going to be okay. So had to go through a grieving process, then got angry, right? It was like the whole stages of everything I think we went through. And you know this about me. I bounce back pretty quick. I try to keep moving. I don't sit still very long. And that's because I want to grow, change, learn, all of that. And so I remember my husband and I calling our parents that day from outside the hospital, telling them what we had just learned. And then we did do the amnio. So we did find out a couple of days later that Harper, in fact, was going to be born with Down syndrome. And then once we got that final test results, we were ready to get our asses in gear and learn everything we needed to learn and teach the people that were going to be around her what the expectations were going to be.
Okay. And how did you do that? What did that look like?
That looked like reading every blog you could think of, reading books, talking to people, signing up for every sort of Down syndrome community newsletter, website, meet and greet, anything. I talked to somebody who had an older sister with Down syndrome. I talked to, again, like working in the early childhood field, I had a lot of access to educators who have experience with kids with special needs and Down syndrome. And I talked to them. What's life going to look like? What's school going to look like for her? Are we doing therapies every day? And their answers were all different, right? Which isn't helpful for a mom who's trying to figure out what to expect. I threw myself into Down syndrome, and I threw myself into open heart surgery for a 4-month-old and survival rates and all of that. I'm one that needs to gather information and then I can process it and I feel better. It doesn't overwhelm me. It makes me feel better that I know the information that could happen. It's the unknown that I get really scared of. So it might be information overload for some people, not for me. I couldn't get enough. So once we kind of gathered our thoughts, then, and I still have this and I look at it occasionally and it seems really silly right now, but I actually don't think I do anything different. My husband, Andy, and I sent an email to friends and family, like a giant email to everybody that basically said, hey, you've all heard the news, right? It's scary. It is not at all what we expected. We're not sad. We're not mad, but we're going to change. We're going to change ourselves and we're going to get on board and help this little girl as much as possible. And that starts with people's attitudes and getting rid of stereotypes of Down syndrome, right? Like I remember in the email, I even said something like, this is the language you use. Do not use Downs. Downs is not a term that we should be using right now. Don't say, the R word, retard. Don't say that. It's hurtful. We also talked about expectations, progress, growth, right? Just because she has Down syndrome doesn't mean that she can't read, that she can't write, that she can't get a job, all of those things. And because that's the way that, my parents' generation grew up in, right? People with Down syndrome were in homes. Most of them weren't living with their families. They were living in an institution or in school, growing up and having kids with special needs in a room all by themselves. That wasn't happening to my kid. And I wasn't going to let my friends and family think that that was okay, right? Get whatever past experience you had out of your head, clear it. This is what I'm telling you to click in your brain and let's work together. I'm here to help. There's no dumb questions. And at the time I wasn't an expert, right? I know more than I knew then, but I still don't get it right all the time. But I think sending that email and laying the expectation out for everybody really helped. It took a lot off of my plate and Andy's plate once she was actually born. And people got on board real quick when they saw that cute little baby come. So that all helped a lot.
That's such a neat. Did you hear that from, was that a tool that somebody said, hey, this is helpful, or that's something that you came up with?
Mm-mm. I came up with it. And remember back then I was a director of a preschool, right? So I had 20 some staff working for me. I had 100 some kids in the building, right? So I was communicating with families, parents, teachers constantly, newsletters, emails, all of that. And I learned through that experience how to get a point across to a mass, right? And that has to be in this instance, it was definitely an email. Having those individual phone calls and text messages would have been impossible to do. So just doing it on an email made a lot of sense logistically, but also then everybody got the same message at the same time.
And it's so clear. There's
so
no
clear.
question about here's the direction we're going. Here's what we want for our child. Here's how you can show up. And I like how you said whatever image, whatever messages that you have had in the past, because everybody has a story that they've maybe seen or whatever it is. You need to clear those. And here's how we're proceeding forward.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And I have the email that I sent. It's still in my inbox, and then some of the responses, right? Not everybody responded, which is totally fine. But there were some that had questions. There were some that were like, yeah, you're a badass. Good for you. Like, we're here every step of the way. There was some, that the responses ranged from everything you could think of. And that was great. That meant that they understood, they were on board. And really it set the tone from the very beginning that we were going to treat her like anybody else. And we still do to a certain extent.
Yeah. How did you, in those early days, because that is you said you took time to grieve. What did you do for yourself to process everything? Because that, you said we were swept away into a room that not many people go in, and you're just overloaded with information. Yeah. And there are parents out there that maybe don't have tools, or they don't know what to, like, any, suggestions for how you processed, or anything for anybody else that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway from that time was, like I said, I dove right into any resources that I could find. But I honestly think I learned the most from talking to actual humans, face to face or on a phone call, right? I think, and it doesn't have to be many. It could be one person. It could be, gosh, I remember I was in high school and there was a friend of mine whose aunt had Down syndrome and lived with them. And I remember thinking of her all the time and reaching out after I found out about Harper, reaching out to them and just talking through life, right? And it doesn't have to be, I guess. You don't have to have specific questions. Hearing their story is helpful enough. And so finding a real person was very beneficial for me. And not everybody's stories are easy. Harper's story isn't easy by any means either. So I don't ever want to give that impression. But neither is my son's, right? Who is a typically developing 10-and-a-half-year-old. So I think switching your brain to, yeah, it's going to suck, but parenthood kind of sucks sometimes too. So there's a grieving process, but also understanding that parenthood in general and raising kids in general is hard. But again, that's something I know now. I didn't know that back then.
Yeah. Are there other things where, looking back, that you maybe would have added in to do that you know now and you didn't know then?
Therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's therapy, right? It's a lot of information all at once. Obviously, talking to my husband is helpful. Talking to family and friends is helpful. But even Andy, my husband, him and I had different emotional responses to the news. Men and women are different when it comes to that. I was the one carrying the child. He wasn't, right? Like it's would have been helpful just for me individually to talk to somebody about how I was feeling. And not that I couldn't do that with Andy. I certainly did. But, his feelings were different in certain circumstances, and mine are different than his. So yeah, seeing a professional therapist probably would have been very beneficial.
When did you, I assume that you have now, at what point in the journey?
Nope.
Oh, you still have it.
No, I haven't. I'm probably still in denial. I think I know that I have to, and I don't. I I haven't. I do also think that a perk of my job that I do every single day, and now I know like this is preaching to the choir, is I help parents a lot. I facilitate these really tough conversations for them. And in return, I get to share my experience a little bit. So it's technically not therapy. I understand that. But speaking about it, speaking about my story and my feelings definitely helps give me that outlet. Yeah, no, I still do need to go to official therapy.
I love therapy. It's the best thing. So everybody go get a therapist.
Go.
But what you said was talking to people, and in your work, I think that's such a neat thing that was like a bonus of it, is that you were in education and that speaking with other parents, hearing other people's stories. For one, I mean, whenever I'm coaching, I take something out, even though I'm the one I'm not leading, but I'm, doing the coaching. I take something out of every single session.
Totally.
And apply it. So I learn so much. And every podcast I do, I learn from every single person something that I take with me and apply. So you doing that, even though it's not therapy, although we all need therapy, it's still so helpful. Speaking your story, it's so healing.
Yeah, no, I agree. And my current work is I'm working with families. And so we can be talking in groups about anything, challenging behaviors. Hey, my kid won't sleep. Hey, any topics. But I agree with you. We learn best by just having conversations with other humans, right? Rather than a PowerPoint or a training session or a quiz. I would much rather just have a conversation with somebody and get a takeaway from them, for sure. Mm-hmm. But also like going back to my years in education, right? Being in early childhood, I had access to everything I needed on a personal level and a professional level. And Harper also then attended the childcare and preschool that I was a director of. And so for very many years, it was me controlling, where she was, who her teachers were, what therapists came in at what time. And I realized that I'm very fortunate for that. And not every parent with a kiddo with special needs gets that. They often are left out of the conversation. I was lucky that I got to drive the conversation and the process and usually the outcome.
Yeah, that's good. But coming from that, wearing that director hat and then also that mom hat, what would you tell people who you're saying, they don't necessarily have that much control? Is there anything that they can do to be able to advocate a little bit differently or better, anything like that?
Yeah, I say find your voice, and it's okay if it takes you a little bit to get there, but you have to use it. Your first priority is your family, your child. You do not worry about hurting people's feelings. Be open, be honest, be direct. It takes a little bit of getting used to. Advocating is hard. It is not easy. And right, again, I've been doing it for 12 years, and our biggest fights have been the last couple of years in middle school. That one is an age I'm not familiar with, right? Give me early childhood 0 through 5 kids. I got that down. I know how to deal with that. Middle school in general is hard. And I'm still learning to find my voice. My voice now, when Harper's in middle school, is different than what it was in elementary school and preschool. But I have a voice, and I'm not afraid to use it. And I'm not afraid of hurting anybody's feelings in the meantime, because it's not about them and it's not about me. It's about Harper, and figure it out, or I'm going to call you out on it. And that took me a while to get to. So my biggest piece of advice is always find your voice, because you have to advocate a lot more than you think you do, and get ready.
Yeah. So I love that you said that. I work with women who we've worked on helping them find their voice for these situations where they have to advocate in school. So I'm really glad that you brought that up, because that's been a huge one where they are fearful that their child will be treated differently if they do use their voice and piss people off. And they don't want to overstep. They think that these people are in charge, and it's really hard for them to do that. Baby steps on that one. Just keep pushing that edge and trying it on and doing it, because you're right. That is your strongest asset, is you using your voice and finding that voice. Can you tell us how your voice, you said it changed from preschool to elementary to middle school now. What has that journey been like?
It has been rocky. So the transition from like 4K to kindergarten was a unique one for me just because remember I had Harper in my building since, day one. So most parents would give me their kids when they were itty bitty. And by the time their kids got to kindergarten, those parents were okay with big transitions, right? Or okay with sending their kid off to school every single day. I didn't really have that experience until kindergarten. And so it was a little bit delayed for me. So sending her off to kindergarten with other teachers was hard because it wasn't the same building. I wasn't their supervisor. But I would say the school that she went to was fabulous. I couldn't have asked for a better experience for her. Kindergarten through fifth grade was amazing. She had friends, she had teachers that loved her, she had support, she was hitting goals, she was smart, like she all of these things. She was doing everything that you want any kid to do in elementary school. Middle school came and there's more freedom for middle schoolers. There's supposed to be a little bit more independence, self-control. That is not where Harper was at. She is young for her class, which is by choice. We could have held her back, but we knew that she would do better with kids that were older, technically older. And I still believe that. But going to a much bigger school with teachers you don't know yet, you don't have relationships with them, is hard. New schedules, changing classes, like all of it is really hard for Harper to survive or to get through because it was a lot of new all at once. So the beginning of sixth grade was us, myself, my husband, the support team at her middle school, trying to get routines down and expectations. That took a long time because classes are different every other day in middle school. So that took a while. I would say the biggest struggle though was she didn't have a person yet. She is big on relationships. She loves you. She will meet somebody and she will either love you or she will hate you. And if she loves you, you are in for the rest of her life. If she doesn't like you right away, she's going to make you earn it. She's going to make you work. And man, she made them work in middle school and sixth grade. She could not get a relationship with a teacher in sixth grade for the longest time. And had she had that from the beginning, I really think her transition would have been easier. And so it took me talking to the staff and the team often to check in. Hey, has she made any friends in this class? Does she have a special relationship with a teacher yet? Like, does she have a person? Does she have a friend, an adult, kid? I don't care. A janitor, anybody? No. The answer is always no, 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 no. And I was like, okay, right. So it was a lot of emails, texts, phone calls, meetings, conversations of find her a person in every class. I don't care who it is. Once you do that, you'll be golden. Sixth grade didn't end well. It didn't start well. It didn't end well. We survived. Seventh grade, she got a person.
Oh.
She got a person. She got a teacher. She has friends in classes. I mean, that girl will sit in the passenger seat at school pickup while we wait to get our neighbor with her head out the window, and she gets the hellos, goodbyes, everybody. Hey, Harper, have a good night. Harper, good job in PE today, right? Like she's killing seventh grade because she found her people. And it took a lot of coaching and conversations and advocating and me directly saying, you need to find this for her. You need to help facilitate it, help her make friendships, help her make relationships. I mean, it hasn't been smooth sailing, but it has been much more successful for her educationally and personally because she has a group of people around her who can support her, both kids and adults. And that has been the game changer.
How many times do you think you checked in, sent an email? If you had to give a ballpark of touch points that you had between the beginning of sixth grade and when she found when what you were saying happened.
Yeah, a lot. I don't even want to throw a number out there because it makes me so nervous. It's not, I mean, there would be days in sixth grade that I'd get texts, phone calls, and emails all about things, right? That I guess were important, but maybe not that I needed to know all the time. Mostly my fallback would be, I need to meet you guys in person. And I realize that not every parent can do that. It's really hard to meet a group of teachers in person. Teachers don't have the time to do that either. But it needed to be done. Some things are better said in person when you can get the whole team there and they can actually see your feelings and emotions. And again, get the message out, the same message across to everybody at the same time. Having individual messages is so time consuming that I would much rather just meet with the entire team. And so that was kind of my default, is I would ask for not an official meeting, just like a check-in meeting. In seventh grade, we had to have an emergency IEP meeting, which was dramatic. And I don't ever want anybody to have to go through that, but I made it out alive, and so did Harper. But that was one where it was official, right? So kids with special needs who have IEPs there's a certain process that you have to go through. Her IEP was violated. I had to call an emergency meeting to immediately fix it. And that was probably the biggest time I had to use my voice and make it happen and follow the laws, the rules for kids with special needs. They have them too. So, I mean, that's a very long answer to your question. Checking in, it depends. It depends. Like right now, we're in a comfortable spot. I don't need to check in as much. But the teachers also know that I'm available, right? So the other day, Harper, I think it was Monday. She was just emotional and sad on Monday. So the teacher sent me a message and she's like, "Hey, anything happened this weekend?" And no, I don't know. Right. It's like just being now to be at the point where the teacher can ask me, "Hey, did anything happen this weekend?" is huge progress, because that wasn't the case last year at all. So now the check-ins have gotten to be better. Yeah.
So that sounds like following the flow of, if you need to be more advocating, just know that, because I think sometimes people, well, I already said it once, or I don't want to be a burden. And they really are so nervous and hesitant to put themselves out there and stretch that muscle of using their voice. And what you said was, I did it over and over and over, and I did it until, and it probably didn't feel good all the time. And you said I had to then use it even more when you had to have the emergency IEP. Can you share just a little bit about how you stretch that muscle and build that muscle? Because that's a tricky space to be in.
It is. And it's a lot of, again, going back to when we found out that Harper had Down syndrome, it's a lot of reading and learning and talking to people and asking questions, and needed to get to a place in my mind that I knew I needed to be okay with hurting people's feelings, right? That might not have been my intention. My intention is never to hurt anybody's feelings, but knowing in the process, somebody's going to take something I say personally, even though that's not my intent, right? Right? Me saying, "Hey, it's the end of sixth grade and Harper still doesn't have any friends in this class. What are you going to do to fix it?" That could be taken personally, right? So as a people pleaser for a very long time, and still partially, I had to be okay with, this person's going to not like me, and that's okay, because that's not my job. My job is for this person to support my kid. So it was a lot of feeling okay with myself, knowing that I'm still a good person if I ask for something directly, talking to people who have been in that experience, right? What tips do you have? What worked for you and your kid in middle school? How did you handle this? And then situationally, right? A big situation happened and I asked for help. I reached out for help and I said, "I know what my options are here, but I need to talk them through with you." And the person I reached out to help with immediately called and was like, "Let's talk me through the scenario." And I did. And then he said, "Here are your two options." And I said, "I know, let's talk through those two." And we did pros and cons, right? And so finding a person that can, this person was in special ed for a long time, so knew like the teacher version of it, and was okay with me asking questions and giving advice. And it goes back to finding a person, researching, learning, and finding your voice. Like, I really think those are the keys to advocating and figuring out who I was in the process, as well as how to support Harper. But I mean, yeah, going back to what you said, keep talking, keep pushing. It's going to be okay.
Yeah, it's going to be okay. You said how I was as a person. Tell us how is your life? I mean, kind of give us paint us a picture of how life is.
Yeah. Yeah. It is so funny because, gosh, I don't think about Down syndrome that often. I mean, there are certainly days and times I do, right? but it's not something that I wake up every morning thinking about like, oh, son of a Harper's got Down syndrome today, right? Like that's long gone. It's not something I think about constantly. It's great. We are a family of four who are busy. My husband and I work from home, different floors of the house. Harper is 12 in seventh grade. She's busy. She loves hip hop dance class. She does Miracle League baseball in the summer and the fall. She loves TikTok. She loves Taylor Swift. She loves a dance party. Brooks is 10, plays hockey, plays soccer. He's busy. We're gone all the time for everything, right? If you didn't include the word Down syndrome with Harper, you would have no idea. We're just a busy family of four living outside Madison, doing the best that they can. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's like any other typical family because we are.
You are. And then I know that, but I want people to hear that because going back to 13 years ago when you're swept away and you have all of these things swirling through your head, or it's a family member who is learning these things. It's so, like you said, talking to people, reassuring to hear. You remove the word doubt. We're just like every other family.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that Harper and Brooks fight constantly, right? Which I'm assuming all siblings do that.
I can attest to that.
Harper tells me I am rude and to go away and to leave me alone, and she slams doors. I remember what I was like at 12, almost 13. I know what my friends' kids were at it, like at 12 and 13. Like she is very typically in her emotions and feelings, just like any other preteen girl is. And for the most part, I love it. Do I like being called rude? No, but it's okay.
I mean, she has her voice.
She does. Yeah, she definitely has her voice. And she uses it with other people. I will say, like, it's, yes, typical family of four with preteen angst. She's also not shy. And so we'll tell other people, like, oh, you're rude, leave me alone. Like, we're working on the filter and like time and place. Yeah. Work in progress.
Any last messages or anything that you would like to share with people listening today?
Oh, gosh. I think one last key to success. I think success, right? Take it. I couldn't have done it without friends. That's a huge part for me. And we don't sit and talk about, oh my God, Harper has Down syndrome and this and this and this. No, like that's not what I mean. I mean more of anybody, any person, right? Like you need your people, you need your village, which is so cliche to say, but you should have somebody that's one text away to, tell you that you're going to kick ass at this podcast and no, you don't need a shot of Fireball to cool yourself down. Like you are just going to be awesome, right? Like you need those people. And you also need those people to, something crappy happens and they're still there. They're still there. And I know that has been a huge key to where I'm at today and where my family is. Yeah, all four of us feel supported by my friends, my husband's friends, because we've tried to treat them like family. And I want the same, right? I want them to be able to call me and be like, bring the shovel, we're going to war for them. And I try to reciprocate that. And I really think that's been huge for us as a family, is we know that there's lots of people that have our backs and it's okay to ask for help and it's okay to send a text and say I'm struggling, and chances are that they're going to be there for you. And that's been awesome to see and very fortunate. We're very fortunate and we realize that.
Yeah. Well, and I think that just shows what a beautiful human you are. People are drawn to you and your energy. You're very kind, but you do use your voice. And that was one of the things I loved about you in our conversations is you are vulnerable. You are a powerful woman and you flex that when you need to. And you're also soft and gentle. And it's nice. Sorry. You probably never heard me say something like that, but you are.
I was like, oh my gosh.
There's this just gentleness about you also, which that probably goes into your childcare background and things like that, where you're very empathetic and you're able to create that community. So flex those skills too, if you're needing to create that community, because that's so, for us too, that I don't know how I would have gotten through the last 12 years if I didn't have all of my people holding me together at times, because there were so many times where I don't think I could have done it all on my own. And I needed either somebody just to hear like the word vomit, where it's like, I cannot hold this inside me, and really being there for people and letting people show up for you. And yeah, you said asking for help. That's a big one.
Yeah. Sometimes it is like, I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to hear me say it and say, okay, Katie, I heard you, right? Like I'm not always asking for a solution. I just need to get it out. And honestly, like I've met so many people through Gym 608 and through you that I still consider really good friends in my life. And that is definitely a direct result of the culture that you created at that gym, right? Like I will run into, gosh, anybody, and immediately we're like, oh my God, I haven't seen you. And right, to give the biggest hugs. And it's so great to see people, women creating those sorts of cultures that can carry on and on and on and on. And hopefully it catches on and everybody does that.
Yes. Yeah, that's wonderful. I'm glad that happens for you. And I know that it does. That was my whole goal in creating it, was that
I know
vibe of home away from home. And we brought all the badasses to the gym. Yes. All right. Last question is, share your number one life hack or tip that has helped you save time, energy, or resources.
I am a phone calendar junkie. Everything is on there. Every little thing is on there. If I need to know it, it's in there with a reminder, with an alarm set, with a labeled alarm set, right? So I know I have a tendency to get wrapped up into things and lose track of time. And if I do not have a visual or audio reminder to stop what I'm doing with a label, it's not happening. There's a lot of things going on in life. So I live and die by that calendar to tell me where I need to be at what time.
Perfect. Yeah. The calendar and alarms. I've had some funny ones though, where I voice text or voice note whatever the label is, and sometimes it's wrong, or it will autocorrect, and then the alarm goes off and I'm like, I have no idea what the hell I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know what this means. I know it was important, but I don't know what it was.
Yes. Nope. Check your labels.
Right, exactly. Well, Katie, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your story and being vulnerable and giving us a peek into the beauty that you've created within your family and sharing, because I think the two takeaways are using your voice. And then I love how you said, say it once. You wrote the email and you would gather team meetings, because you also said how exhausting it is to say it over and over and over. And when you're in a space where you're not really sure what to do and you're sort of in the fire, if you can conserve that energy as much as possible. So I think it would be really great if you made like a template of that email for people, just in general, an idea. Here's an outline, because I think that's genius for you to do, because when some people, when they go through tough situations and hard things, their brain sort of shuts off and they don't know what to do. But yours was like, I am fully power up. Yeah. I am on. Yes. Yeah. I think that would be a great resource for people.
That is smart. It's a great idea.
Okay. Just giving you good ideas here. Work to do.
Got it. Write it down.
All right, Katie. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, my beautiful and loyal listeners, I am here asking you for a favor. The Spirit of a Badass podcast has been nominated for Best of Madison. There are 6 podcasts in this category, and only 3 will make it on to Best of. So you don't get to be a badass by yourself. We get here by the support of other people in our community, and I am asking you, my beautiful community, to take about 2 minutes of your time, follow the link in the show notes, and go ahead and cast your vote for the Spirit of a Badass. If you are driving or something like that, go ahead and set an alarm for when you'll be done, or a time in the future that you know you will be able to take a few minutes and cast your vote. Thank you, thank you, thank you, my wonderful, wonderful listeners. Spirit of a Badass is a Lit Path Studios podcast and is produced by Jamie Gale and Alecia Jacobson. Music by Shane Ivers. We'll be back with another inspiring interview. Until then, keep your spirits high and your energy badass.